Um, so I don't see any community members on the call, but we will go ahead and record this for them to be able to watch later. So this is our quarterly Path CUP presentation. And so we will spend the majority of the meeting on that conversation. But before we begin, I'll just make a quick announcement. Let's share my screen. Just that our next neighborhood walk is coming up 2 weeks from today, the same day as our next Eastside Rap meeting at 8:30 a.m. We'll meet at Mackenzie Park and then walk on Upper State. So if you're interested, we'd love to have you come out and join us. With that, I think I'll go ahead and turn it over to Liz and Odin. I'm not sure who's giving the presentation, but I can make you both co-hosts.
Yeah, actually, Jonathan is giving the presentation. I'm texting him.
Oh, okay.
I'm texting him right now, and this will be kind of our transition to me giving the presentations moving forward. But I can at least get the slideshow up.
Sounds good. Good morning, CV. So while we're waiting, oh, here's Jonathan. This is just a reminder, this week is our quarterly Path conditional use permit presentation. So Path is gonna use the bulk of our meeting today to give an update to us all. Hey, Jonathan. I just made you a co-host as well. You're muted, Jonathan.
Sorry. Okay, sorry about that. Give me 1 second to pull up the PowerPoint. All right. So as the presentation is pulling up, we're going to be kind of sharing for those of you who are our service providers and in this field, as you know, the fiscal year has ended. And for those of you that maybe aren't using the fiscal year, our fiscal year is July through June. And so that's when a lot of our contracts end with our funders and we start the new year. And so that's usually how we track a lot of our data. And so we thought it would be great to kind of do a end of year sort of like where we fell with a number of our programs. So what we're going to be discussing today is I'm still working to pull up the presentation is our outreach, some reflections, and then, you know, as we sort of look forward. It always takes me a second to orient myself with Zoom because we use Teams and internally. Okay, so here is the agenda for today. So the first thing we just wanted to talk about is, you know, we started our outreach program. Odin joined our team last fall. And so he joined our team actually in August and got the program up and running in September. And so we thought it would be great just to kind of share a little bit about work that Odin's been doing this past year and some of the lessons learned and some of the work that he's accomplished. So the goal of the program was to serve 60 individuals. And the way that our program is designed is that we expect in our experience with running outreach programs that you typically have people on average moving off of your caseload around 3 months or so, that you're getting them connected to other services such as interim housing or other types of programs that then those programs are able to support them and then we take on someone new. So even though the program started in September and the fiscal year starts in July, we served 57 individuals this past year, which is incredible. In terms of this next data set that you see here, 38 total exits from the program. What that basically means is that there comes a time, whether it's for a positive reason or an adverse reason, that somebody might be closed out from our program. And so of those that were actually closed out, 18 of them were positive. 6 of them, and this is a really cool number, 6 individuals were housed. One of the things I want to highlight about that particular number is an outreach. We call this a street to home placement, that sometimes folks are interested in permanent housing, but they may have not either been able to gain access to a shelter bed, or maybe the shelter bed wasn't conducive to what their needs were, and so they moved straight from the home into permanent housing. So we had 6 individuals that did that. We had 12 that entered into either shelter, a skilled nursing facility, or inpatient for substance use disorder. And then we had 2 veterans that were served and 1 housed through the Salvation Army for SSVF. If you're asking yourself what happened to the other 20 individuals, part of what we saw, and which is great with the coordinated outreach work that we've been doing, is the fact that sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Some of them moved outside of the service area, and so we weren't able to continue to keep up and keep track with them. But in many cases, we were actually, because of the coordinated outreach that we're doing with our fellow partners, we were able to make sure that there was a warm handoff actually occurring. So that way there was the care that was continued to be provided, even though we were no longer living in our service area. And then in some cases, there were folks that actually we just lost track of, but in many of the cases, we knew where they were going and were able to hand them off to some of the other providers. Outreach goals as we look forward to the new fiscal year. So our goal is to serve 60 individuals, and based on the data that you saw from this past fiscal year, serving 57 in less than a year, we feel confident that we can achieve that goal. In terms of folks that we're aiming to house, 25% will have a positive housing exit. So that means that our goal is to get 25% of the people that we're serving connected to something that is more permanent or long-term. As we look as we reflect on this past year, there's a few things that we really wanted to highlight that we learned a lot about having Odin fully dedicated to the community. I know in previous years, we had a lot of conversation around what we were seeing snapshots of in terms of our data, in terms of folks who were in the community. And I think with having Odin in present, it really helped kind of validate and inform a lot of the things that we were seeing. And so one of the things that, and I'm going to take a pause here after I share this first one so Odin can share a success story. But one of the things we learned is that homelessness is not a choice, that there's many cases and instances where folks have been homeless for an extended period of time, and they may have said no to services, and sometimes that's translated as they don't want help. But and as we've looked forward and seen engagement that Odin has done, it's really more about their hesitancy to engage in services is removed with a relationship and with trust. And that's a lot of the work that we saw with Odin having a dedicated presence, is that Odin's actually now in a position where people who have historically been reluctant are expressing interest in wanting to work with him. And he's having to sort of manage those expectations to make sure that he's not taking on a higher caseload than he's able to provide the quality of services that is making his name so commonly known amongst our participant population. I'm going to take a pause, so maybe Odin, you can share the success story that really kind of highlights this.
Gladly. Thank you so much, Jonathan. I wanted to highlight one individual very visible on the Eastside. He was put on my radar mostly because he lives in a pretty one-of-a-kind van, but we'll call him Don for the sake of HIPAA. But he is by far one of the hardest individuals I've one of the difficult cases that I've had the pleasure of working with. But he initially, was very dismissive when I first approached offering services. He said, "Oh, you and your organization only want to, house the individuals that are, like marketable or no, thank you, not for today. He was very, very content living on the beach, living out the rest of essentially just the rest of his life, but just doing his own thing, living in his van, being isolated right in front of on the east side. So, and it took weeks, weeks and weeks of, the constant conversations. And honestly, it was, having, giving him up a pair of socks or handing a water bottle every so often, so that saying, "Hey, it's good to see you, Don. It's good to see you." And then what his initial cold shoulder after a few weeks eventually turned to a "Hi, how you doing?" waving his hand, and then until one day he said, "Okay, Odin, I've been doing horribly. I need your help." And when that day happened, I knew I was in for a one heck of a ride. He is near 70 years old, severe cerebral ataxia. He can barely walk around the block without having to take a 10-minute break. Every time we have to do some kind of clerical work, busy work, anything like that, it would take uh, double the time allotted, maybe 2 hours, 3 hours just to go through anything. But after looking through his information, he qualified for a lot of things. Social Security being one of them. He put a lot of his time. He was a very skilled craftsman during his day, and he had access to all these benefits. It's just every time he would want to sit down to try and go through it, the cerebral ataxia would take him out. He would have to leave the room. He just wouldn't focus. His brain would be anywhere out, and he just couldn't function. He told me, I have all these benefits. I need help getting these. And if it weren't for your personality, if it weren't for you, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't even like get it started, you know? So it took a few months and a few rejections. We managed to get him the benefits that he needs. He got his SSDI with SSI coming on in his way, and it was an uphill battle. But it just took time. It just took time. Process, but we managed to get it done. And now
All right. So just a really cool.
No. Possessed. I don't know what that button is.
Did it start or did it stop?
Yeah, you should be all good to keep going.
Okay. All right. So we just really wanted to highlight that because we see many of these cases through persistent and frequent engagement with folks who might have historically been reluctant. Another thing that we've seen is that clients are certainly interested in services, but services may not always be available or even near them. That sometimes what a lot of the data shows is that, people become homeless or experience homelessness in the communities and they are most familiar or identify with. And so when you have services that are completely on the other side of the city or the county, it can be really kind of scary for folks. But in our engagement with them, we see that people want the help and want the services. Coordination with key stakeholders is incredibly critical in this work. I think Odin just spoke a little bit to the collaboration he did for behavioral health services, but even collaborating with our partners around vehicular outreach to help people get into safe parking programs, do engaging in Spanish outreach to make sure that the fact that we're not engaging folks because we don't speak Spanish is a barrier, and that we're engaging with our partners who are able to offer that. And then the mental health services. And this is, I think, a really kind of a key piece that we're excited to see as part of Odin's collaboration and coordination, because we know there's a lot of folks who are unsheltered on the streets that have high behavioral health needs, but it's such a challenge to navigate the behavioral health system. So that's a really cool and exciting collaboration. And then, of course, the coordination with the city has been incredibly key and clutch as well, right? Like, as we're kind of seeing different trends or challenges, that we're working closely with the city and with law enforcement to make sure that we're working in hand and making sort of our coordination stronger through collaborating. And then, of course, working through the businesses. I know that Odin talked a lot about how successful he's been able to connect with some of the folks who are on the streets, because like Susie, for example, has helped Odin with folks who are unsheltered getting connected to people, and it helps with sort of the trust, or even just if there's folks that we're missing, that sometimes we know that the businesses might be seeing things that we're not always seeing. And so it's almost providing sort of an extra set of eyes and ears to make sure that we're engaging with folks that we may have missed during certain parts of the day or hours. The other thing that we've seen is the importance of enhanced communication. And so one of the things that we're excited to share with you is that we created an email, outreachsb@epath.org, that goes to a small group of people within our organization, because we've also recognized that Odin is just one person. And so if there's ever a reason that Odin is unable to respond to an email, or he took some self-care time off or whatnot, that we have other folks who are attached to that email that can be responsive and communicate and coordinate with you. And so you're not having to kind of do a shot in the dark of like, who at Path should I call? So we want to make that process much more easier for our community. And then lastly, a centralized number as well. So we, this was actually a great idea that Liz discovered, is that we have the ability to create a centralized phone number that goes to the same group of people in the email. Will go at the same time, so that way we can be responsive with our phone calls as well. This is another thing that we've seen that we want to be helpful and useful as well. Is, we kind of feel like one of the ways that we can work better together as a community is by providing information out to our partners that they know, who to reach out for what and when, and so we provided this resource guide here that Liz and Odin were plan on walking around to all of our business neighbors and kind of sharing the intent of this resource guide. That we see someone experiencing homelessness, what is a program that specializes in vehicular homelessness? There's a number for that. If you see someone engaged with the illegal or illicit activity, that might be something that is posing sort of an imminent threat or safety concerns, that you can call PD, because those are things that Odin may not be able to resolve, because that's not really the scope of his work, right? Or if you see someone experiencing a mental health crisis, that you kind of know who to reach out to. We had some wonderful coordination that happened the other day, where I think there was a person who appeared gravely disabled. If you're not familiar with what that term means, gravely disabled just means that there's an inability to care for themselves. That was coordinated between one of our local business partners, Path, as well as PD, to make her getting sort of the help that she needed. But in those situations that folks know who to reach out to. And you can kind of see the other ones here for general support from Path, as well as encampments and trash or illegal dumping. So let's talk about a little bit more about program outcomes. So as you all know, Path offers other services beyond outreach and beyond interim housing. And so we also wanted to highlight some of the work that has gone on this past year across the board in all of our programs. So in interim housing this past year, we've been able to permanently house 20 individuals. 3 of these folks were actually moved from our interim housing to our rapid rehousing program, and 6 moved into permanent supportive housing. So this is really exciting news, especially because, permanent supportive housing program, as you may have heard me mention in the past, is really intended for people that have complex and chronic health needs and history of homelessness. And so the permanent supportive housing program is really kind of created to serve those folks. So it's great to see that folks have been connected to that in interim housing. Our rapid rehousing program, just as a reminder, is a program that provides short-term rental assistance and case management to people who are experiencing circumstantial homelessness. It served 27 people this past year, with 16 people who already moved into permanent housing, and 3 of the 16 households actually came from interim housing. Permanent supportive housing, we've served an additional 21 this past year and have already housed 17 households, including the 6 from interim housing that I previously mentioned. And then here it kind of just shows that in terms of the households versus individuals, it's 44 households, which converts into 48 individuals. The other thing we just wanted to mention is coming up on Saturday, August 19th, we have another community cleanup day where, we just want to engage as many folks as possible in this event. We've been very thankful and appreciative of Councilmember Gutierrez, who's actually participated for the last 2 events. And last month, we actually had great participation from not only some of our residents that live in the building, but some of the folks outside as well. When they heard and found out what we were doing, they wanted to join in and help sort of with that support. So if you are interested in being involved in the next community cleanup, we encourage you to reach out to us. You can reach out to Liz, you can reach out to Odin, or to make it even more simple for you, we have this email here, spvolunteers@epath.org. We have a volunteer coordinator. Her name is Gabby, that coordinates all of this. And so she's going to be the best person for you to contact with, but Liz and Odin can also answer questions as well. We just want to open it up for questions or comments now.
I want to echo what's been said in the chat, both about just having this outreach role this last year has made a huge difference, and specifically having Odin in this outreach role has been huge. So really, really grateful that that's been able to happen. I was curious if you've noticed, even just anecdotally, differences in when clients enter into the PATH shelter after engaging with Odin first, if there's a difference between individuals who might just be entering into PATH cold, like for the first time with no prior engagement.
Sure, I can speak to that. So the benefit of entering into the outreach program before entering into interim housing, as opposed to just entering to interim housing, sometimes there's a little bit of lag before someone gets assigned a caseworker. We have 2 caseworkers on, but we have 100 beds. So it's understandably, it's just a little bit difficult for these 2 dedicated caseworkers to work on everyone, especially when it comes to new people. But when they come in, associated with outreach, they know that I'll be working with them for the whole time until they get that one handoff to another one of our staff. So it's not like, they go in there and then they take their time. They're continually cared for with all the benefits of, having a mobile caseworker to help them out, while also having all the services of, the shelter that they're in.
I think just to also add to a little bit of what Odin was sharing, I think what we've also noticed, not just with Santa Barbara, but I think across a lot of our programs, which I kind of feel like you're hinting at, Landon, is that we've actually seen that when the trust and relationship is already established prior to entering into interim housing, it helps with engagement once in interim housing, right? Because they've been able to see the value and the role of case management from the outreach perspective, and they continue to see the value and the role of that when they move into interim housing on site. I think sometimes what we see with folks when they're not engaged in supportive services or case management beforehand, it might be harder to engage, right? Because their need might be, I just want a roof over my head. I don't really want case management. So that relationship with outreach prior to interim housing does help a lot. Mayor Rouse?
Hand raised by the mayor.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, thanks. I just, as you noticed in chat, I put in something about distributing that information for a couple of reasons. Number one, the public at large still is largely unaware of the efforts that are going on. It's so important that they are aware. Number one, for their ability to be proactive. Number two is as we come up on the new budget contracts for these services, we need to have the support as well. The public needs to know how much proaction there is from, we have Liz and we have Barbara, which is fabulous. The general public really doesn't understand that. This is kind of inside baseball, but the general public all have an opinion about homelessness and things on the street. So when they see this kind of activity, or if they could be in on this call, they go, oh, they are paying attention. Oh, they are making progress. So when we come up to the next Dignity Moves kind of project and things like that, you got to bring the public along for the ride. Otherwise, you're just going to spin your wheels and have a de minimis participation from the public. So I really, really want to get us out of our normal mode of communication, which is, well, go to our website. Well, people just don't necessarily do that, or they don't opt in. So that's what, and Landon responded to me that you have a template for a card like that. Whatever we can do involving the chamber, involving the DO, all those things are really important, not just in little meetings we have, but to the public at large.
Thank you for that feedback, Mayor. And I'm curious, maybe if there's any thoughts that you might have of other spaces that we should be in to help kind of accomplish this.
Sorry, if I could just speak to that really quick, just in response. With this flyer that we created, we're going to be printing it. So we're going to get it in Spanish too. So it'll be double-sided English and Spanish. And then we're going to print it on more of like a heavy duty laminated paper so that it can really be a tool for businesses. And we're going to go, Odin and I are going to do like a neighborhood tour and go business to business to business to meet with them and talk to them and give them this flyer so that it can really be a tool that they keep at their front desk or at reception or whatever, wherever it's easily accessible for their employees, so that when they see something happening, they can grab this and use it. We took a lot of time to really go through and figure out, how to make this super easy to use for any employee at any business so that they know exactly what to do to just get this, get whatever specific situation is happening to get it taken care of. So we're going to start in our neighborhood. And then we also have already talked with our partners who have asked for this flyer as well that they can use and update, like to add their information instead of ours if it's a different outreach team that they should be reaching out to. So we'll be sharing it with partners to be able to use in the same way as well, so we can get it out to as many businesses.
Well, I think that's really important, Liz. But I also think that if you have an opportunity, we should get a hold of DSB and get a hold of the chamber. Have somebody from these organizations and or the city go to those meetings with those schools. Because oftentimes you walk into businesses, I've done that exact same technique myself, and you're talking to some clerk or some part-time person, and this happens to us with notifications all the time. They go, well, we didn't get the notification. Well, I handed it to your guy. Well, that was some 17-year-old watching the desk. So it's really important that you get to the people who know those owners, who know the landlords, who know the tenants. And plus, you really want those organizations to support the efforts of the body of people that are on this screen right now. And, you got Susie from Marburg, which is fabulous, but, how many other businesses are here and represented? Not as many as we need to really have the momentum behind all this. So please try to effort your distribution and the communication directly with those organizations that run business meetings, at least once a month, if not more frequently.
Thank you. That's helpful. Liz?
I was just gonna just tag on to what Mayor Rouse had said and just update everybody that SB Act is going before council this coming week to renew their agreement. And actually one of the things they have proposed is an information campaign So I think this is great feedback that Mayor Rouse provided to us in terms of who to reach out to when we provide information on the work that not just SB Act, but the work that PATH and all the other various service providers are doing, including what us at the city are doing. So really appreciate that feedback, Mayor Rouse. And I think you make an excellent point about going to the chambers. And yeah, we've noticed when we do those walks, those neighborhood walks, you know, sometimes you get a person working at the counter, gives you a different perspective than talking to the owner directly. So we appreciate that, and we will be incorporating that as we develop our public information campaign. Thank you.
Susie?
Yeah, I just want to, first of all, say congratulations to Odin and sharing your stories. It's really impactful, and it shows that your work is benefiting our community. So thank you. It's very well appreciative. And I enjoy working with you as a neighbor and a community partner. So you're doing a great job. So I'm sure it tears at your heart and mind every day. But you are appreciated, and hopefully the team at PATH is taking care of you. So one suggestion, and that piggyback somewhat Randy's talking about, is I think you need to showcase the stories and share what you are doing, but also open up opportunity for conversation with business partners and community partners on how we can be more strategic in solving some of these issues, and educating us on how we can deter, you know, the drug use and making our employees feel comfortable coming into work. Another avenue outside of the chamber would be, I sit on the Santa Barbara Human Resources Association board. I think that would be important to showcase your good work, but also involving, you know, the HR Association as another platform. So because, you know, they also have employees that are dealing with similar situations. And also, Liz, I would like to recommend at PATH that we form like a kind of a quarterly focus group where we come together and try to strategize again in terms of innovative solutions outside of the program work that you guys are doing, but really how to curb this drug use that's going on our streets.
Thank you, Susie. Any other questions or comments?
No, I was just gonna respond to Susie's suggestions. I think these are good. I think, and I know I'm gonna be struggling with Liz, and I think you meant PATH Liz for the focus group, but I think I'm wondering if you mean like a neighborhood association kind of a group. Is that what you're
thinking? I
thinking?
think with business partners, I know that, you know, not all of them are represented on this call, but really, you know, I know there's individuals in the neighborhood that are frustrated enough where they don't want to be on this call because they feel like they're not seeing the progress. So I think that if we just try to pull together, you know, a focus group where we can all come together and talk about strategies and ways to ensure that the talent that we do have feels comfortable coming to work, and that they also appreciate how to the good work that PATH is doing. So.
Thank you. I think that's a really good suggestion. And I think us as the city, I think it would be good as well. We have a neighborhood improvement task force that is made up of various city staff that includes myself, a couple of people on this call, and a few others, our police department, et cetera, where we work together to look at structural improvements that we can do in certain neighborhoods to address whatever issues, not just necessarily related to homelessness. It could be related to blight. It could be related to just general improvements. So if you do have something like that, I would love to have somebody from the city at these meetings so we can kind of come up with something together that is neighborhood specific, not necessarily homelessness related, just in general, lighting, street improvements, things like that.
Absolutely, that would be great. I mean, we have a lot of the cars that are parked here and, the individuals that are challenged, but then there's individuals that are living in their cars that there's one lady that's right in front of our building. She's been there for years and she wears a safety vest and sweeps and brooms the sidewalk. I mean, she cares, but there's 2 vans down from her and they're selling drugs and come on site and charge their phones and so it just creates the craziness, and Michelin is challenged with it and Heal Strong and so I think if we can all pull together and brainstorm and then share resources like that list that Jonathan shared, it again, I've said it before, it takes a village.
Thank you.
Any other last questions or comments? I think we kind of went over time. Sorry, Landon.
No, that's okay. We want to leave this extra time for you.
Yeah, I think maybe the last thing I just wanted to share and add is that this will be not the last meeting that I'll fit in, but I'll probably be presenting on that. Liz is going to be as a regional director role, kind of representing path with Odin in these meetings. So if you participation begin to kind of decrease, that's the reason. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Jonathan. And although we'll miss seeing you, we're really glad this is here. All right. Any other comments or questions or concerns from any community members before we close the meeting for justice service providers? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and end the meeting for our community members and service providers. If you can stick around, that'd be great. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Again, Odin, good work.
Thank you, Susie. We appreciate it.